All right, so lovely you could join. Let's start with giving ourselves a hug. So let's wrap the arms around, hold the shoulders, use your fingertips to walk as close around to the edges of the shoulder blades as you can. And we'll round the back, so chin to chest, rounding forwards, and just a gentle nurturing rock side to side. So just make a note of which arm is on top, because we will take it to the other side in a moment. So nice gentle movement side to side, and then the reverse will open the arms, clasp the hands behind the back, and roll the shoulders back and down. Now, when we take a head roll, if your neck's a little bit sensitive, we lift the shoulders up to meet the ears, and we'll roll the head. So chest is open with this clasping of the hands behind the back, and we'll gently roll the head. Nice soft jaw. Any pops and crackles along the way, fine, as long as you're not being aggressive with that circling, nice and nurturing. Let's have the circles in the other direction. And then we'll pause just to pull the arms a little bit away from the body and just to further open the chest. Okay, so then it's the other arm on top. Give yourself a hug, wrap the arms, and then this time we're going to take the legs a little bit wider, sway and fold. Just taking any movements that you feel led to make here, just to find ease in wherever you may need a little bit of wakening up. Lovely. Last time we'll clasp the hands behind the back. Can you remember which thumb is on top? Can you make the other thumb on top? Rolling the shoulders back and down. Initially, the fists can be into the base of the spine there. So we're really opening across the chest, and then we're circling the head. Again, nice soft jaw. Nothing aggressive, and in giving yourself time to work over the same points if it feels a little bit nice or comforting, or you're working out a little bit of tension along the way. Lovely. All right, holding the shoulders, use your fingertips to actually turn and draw the shoulder, the armpits forward. So I'm taking hold and externally rotating, so the biceps then, it makes your biceps look bigger, until your biceps point up to the ceiling, so opening across the chest. And then we'll circle. So elbows come forwards, up, and we're opening across the chest, and shoulders back and down. Sometimes you might feel you want to turn the head left and right here, so we're just finding ways to ease out any knots, niggles along the way, circling. If you feel you're able to maintain this externally rotated position in the shoulders, you could maybe think about the arms straightening and taking full circles. But as we open the arms wide, palms open to the ceiling and reaching back. So whether you're holding the shoulders or we're starting to extend the arms, let's start to make those movements a little bit bigger. We can round forwards so that we're flexing the upper spine, and then bursting open, so we're occupying space, spreading, and off we go. Few more. So either bent at the elbows or open. Last time, nice big opening, and then we'll move on to the lower body. So just shrug out the shoulders here. Feet nice and wide, slight turn out in the feet. We're just going to take a lunge side to side. But let's first of all place that webbing of the index fingers and thumbs into the crease at the top of the legs. And just tick-tock the hips side to side. Nothing aggressive, not too fast, just feeling that stretch in the inner thigh. And meanwhile, thinking how nice and long we can be through the spine. Checking in with that kind of tech neck, the forward folding, so chin back. I'm always trying to find some way of explaining how to hold the head. And I think it's the kind of the sensation, if you see something that's a little bit gross and you kind of recoil away from it, you see how you take the whole of the head back and you almost give yourself a double chin. That's a nice position for your head. We're going to start to bend the knee now. So let's start with the left knee. So left toes, lift the ball of the foot, turn so the toes are pointing out to the side, lower the foot and bend the knee. Doesn't matter if just briefly the knee comes over the ankle, that's fine. Return the foot to its starting position over to the other side. So nice and gently for now, just taking that side to side lunge. You can adjust how wide you place the feet. And if you're feeling a little bit tight in the hips, maybe just staying here and not adding on any arms will be the right thing to do. So your choice, how far you add on. Also, how wide you take the legs. Obviously, the deeper we go, the deeper the stretch, but it shouldn't be anything forced about this at all. Obviously, for mobility, we want a nice, helpful range of movement. Excessively opening isn't going to help us just keep mobile and able to do our daily activities. So a nice, helpful level of mobility we're going for here. Now, if you're fine here, you want to add on a little bit more, let's pause on one side and stretch the arm up and over the ear. So we take it side to side, we're just adding on that upper arm. Try to feel the stretch from the fingertips all the way down the side of the body, the outer seam, right down to the outside of the foot. And we have to pause just for a little bit in that stretch to get the full benefits. Because initially, the biggest muscles will kick in, they'll stretch, but just to go a little bit deeper and reach fascia, tendons, ligaments, give everything a chance to lengthen out and breathe, we just pause there. If you're feeling a little bit more vigorous, we can start to flow these arms. So think about now rolling the shoulder forwards, dropping the arm, lifting overhead and folding in front of the face. So keep it nice and slow with as many pauses, as many stops as you wish, or otherwise just thinking about occupying yet more space as we stretch and lengthen out, find spaces in the body. Last couple of sets either side. Lovely. All right. We're going to, if you want to just take the legs together just for a little shimmy out of the hips, shaking out, we're going to return to a wide leg position for a spinal twist. So let's go back to that idea of holding the shoulder and rolling the armpit forward so we open the side of the chest. Now turn to face the side wall. And now we're reaching down that outer seam as we flex and rotate the spine. So coming into a forward fold, don't worry about how deeply you go. We're keeping that opening in that left side of the shoulder. Now engage your core, press into the outer seam of the leg to come back up to standing and rotate to the other side. So just promoting that openness of the shoulder, turning and then folding. So we're getting that rotation of the spine, flexion of the spine, and we're still working the postural muscles in the upper body. So think about how much of the day, probably 99.99 to infinity % of the day that we spend with the shoulders rounding forwards. So really giving yourself a chance to get a bit of balance into how we stress the body. How deeply you come into the fold, how far or close to the ankle you get will all just depend on how you're feeling today. So don't have a fixed idea in your head of how far you want to twist. If you're feeling a little bit more agile, you may be able to lift the elbow up and maybe look up at the ceiling. And maybe we pause. Otherwise, just taking it down a notch. So this is really helpful for if we're thinking about Pilates saw, or for the Trikonasana, so many of the warrior poses and standing poses in yoga. If we get the basics slowly with control, it really strengthens our practice. So let's conclude this little exercise. Even yourself out left and right, shrug out the shoulders, and now let's take the legs together. This way we can work on the adductors, the inner thighs. So let's get the big toes together, ping on your glutes, slightly tuck your bottom under, shoulders back and down. Now with our hands running down the fronts of the legs, start to bend at the knees as if you're going to sit in a chair. See if you can keep the weight really into the heels. How far you go again is just going to be a question of how many repetitions give you that little bit of mobility back or how you're feeling today. So there's no pressure. It's just about checking in with the body, switching on the hamstrings and the glutes. coming into that squat position and rolling up. So as we go down and we rise up, see if you can squeeze the knees together. You can check with your fingers and see that the inner thighs are firing up there. Now, you'll either stick with this or I like to give you options if you're feeling up to it. As we come into this squat position, the arms can come up and parallel, the weight's still into my heels, knees are still squeezing together so the inner thighs are on, that corset muscle TBAs pulled in around the waist, and we come up to standing, open the arms out wide and off we go again. So nice nurturing, weight very much back into the heels. I can even lift and wiggle my toes, just nurturing the legs with the hands, sweeping up, pressing the heels into the floor to come up. Opening the chest, open wide. Let's have 3 more. Now for the last 3, we have an option when we come up to standing of lifting the heels. So let's see, as we come up to standing, if we can, engage the glutes and roll up onto the balls of the feet, just briefly feeling that length stacking of the body and then lowering the heels and off we go again. Last 2. Finding that strength and length from the base of the spine into the fingertips, all the way up, optionally rising up onto the balls of the feet. Here, if you're taking this option, this balance, again, press the balls of the feet down and slightly together to get that strength in the inner thighs, and then opening the arms, off we go last time. Heels up, squeeze, tuck the bottom under so the pubic bone is curling up to the ribs. We have the support of the abdominals, and then melt the arms down. Brilliant. We're going to shake out the legs. Okay. We're going to take a balancing stick for our last bit of standing work. So let's take the one leg forwards. It's not helpful me wearing black, is it? So this front leg that you can see is back, and we're going to bend your front knee. So into a gentle high lunge. So keep the back heel lifted if you can, otherwise use a wall for balance if that's a little bit tricky. So bottom tucking under, we're stretching the hip flexors of that leg that's out behind you. Now, if we take the hands together, index fingers together, overhead, and we're going to transfer the weight onto the front foot till we come onto the back toe, and depending on where you are today, you might be able to lift the leg, lower, a return. So we're going to aim for 4 of those. So start with the bottom tuck, shoulders down, navel to spine, seeing where that tipping point and a seesaw action as the weight comes forwards, the back leg starts to lift, and we take a balance, see where you are on this side, taking it at your pace. So think about the ribs, front ribs knitting together, the whole of the abdominal wall firming up. See that 2-way stretch between the toes and the index fingers overhead. And we'll take one last one on this side, and then we'll switch sides. So think about the shoulders being squared to the front. So even if we're destabilizing the lower body, let's see if we can use those stabilizers in the core to keep the shoulders and hips pretty much square to the front. Ooh, and release and shrug out. So we keep the same distance in between the legs. Let's go directly to the other side. So if we can lift the back heel, bend the front knee. Tuck the bottom under, so we're working those hip flexors. Shrug out the shoulders if they're getting a little bit tired. You can also have the hands on the hips, but let's go straight into 5 in total of these balancing stick modifications. So we're rolling onto the front foot so that we have less weight on that back toe, and it's a small movement then transition to lifting the toes. So we're trying to avoid any sudden movements launching off. Try and own that movement. If you're taking those steeple top fingers, see if you can put the other thumb on top. So let's get the brain engaged in the whole workout as well. So the bottom's tucked, hip flexors are slightly lengthened here. hinging forwards, weight coming into the front foot, no sudden movements. And it's only if we feel the weight has come out of the back leg, we could start to take the full lifting through to balancing stick. Ooh. I think because of the class I did yesterday, I'm really feeling this in my arms already today. If that's you and it's a little bit, you're getting fatigue into the arms or into the legs, just take a break. Take a break. We've got one more if you're with me. Tipping forwards, strong long lines. And then come out. So shrug out the shoulders. I'm going to lower the camera. We're going to meet on all fours. So you may want to take a roll down through the spine. Here we are again. All right, so shoulders over, wrists. Release your toes at the back there. And let's just take a cat-cow. So when you're ready, let's breathe in and look up so the belly sinks down. The sit bones right at the wall behind. We're exaggerating that curve in the spine, but nothing forced. Should be no pain. And then chin to chest, press away from the floor, not only through your hands, but through your knees, the shins, the tops of the ankles, and lift the navel away from the floor, chin to chest. Separate the shoulder blades. Have one more set like this. Nice deep breath in. You can add a little bit of a sway here. And then arching cat. Separate the shoulder blades so that you're puffing the spine up in between the shoulder blades and finding that rounding in the back. Let's get a calf stretch by extending the right leg out behind you and planting the ball of the foot on the floor. Now from here, send some energy back into that heel. So really press back. We're still keeping the shoulders over the wrists. For a deeper calf stretch, you take the toes closer to you and then lean back. Also, we can tuck the bottom under and hover your left knee. So keep thinking about driving your back heel away. And then let's switch. We'll be taking a knee to nose pose. For the first set, we'll do it on all fours, and then I'll give you an option of taking it up to a down dog position. So let's just work that other calf. Just finding the lovely stretch in the back of the leg, with the option of hovering and driving a little bit more energy into the back heel. That's giving me burning in my arms. What have I been doing? So let's start that knee to nose. But to do this, we want to make sure we're toning and using the strength of that abdominal wall to lift away from the mat. So let's engage the core, ribs together, and lift the right knee bent. And then as you breathe out, knee comes forward, round the back, as we did with the arching cat, and try to aim for your nose. We'll breathe in, and let's go for 4 of these. Aiming to keep the bottom tucked under as we lift the leg behind us. So whilst we are going for the arching cat here, I'd like you to try to avoid the cow face pose, the cow pose rather, in this position. So keeping the hips down, the hips level. So it's a neutral spine to an arched spine. Navel to spine. Last one on this side. If you need to rest out your wrists, by all means take a child pose. Sitting back on the heels. So we're going straight to the other side unless you need a little break to rest out the wrists, give them a little circle, a little shake. But then we're finding that neutral spine position like up with the ledge of tea, a tray of tea on your back. And let's lift the left leg without arching the back. So keep that strength in those core muscles. And here we can allow flexion of the spine for the knee to come up towards the face. Go right to the end of that out breath, so you have the strength of the out breath, so draw navel to spine and pull those TBAs, the courses in around your waist. You're doing well. Slow and controlled is so much harder than flinging and relying on momentum. So think about you're nurturing yourself and working really strongly and effectively, mindfully. I've lost count, so we'll do one more. And then we'll briefly take a child pose, and it's at that point, I'll just demo the same thing, but from a down dog. So if you take a rest, I'll come up onto down dog. So you'll either do another set of 5 nose to knees with the knees on the floor, or you'll join me in a down dog position where we'll lift the right leg and breathe out, knee comes towards the nose. So when you're ready, let's set up. We're either on all fours, wrist feeling okay? So either on all fours, and we take 5 on this, the left and right, or join me in down dog. So if you are, whichever version, lifting the right leg, and then as you breathe out, knee comes up to the nose, empty the lungs, squeeze through the core, and off we go. So we have 5 on this leg. The body weight will shift forward slightly as the knee comes to the nose. Then that's fine, slight sway forwards. It's the engagement in the core that we want to really work on here. Then of course we are strengthening the legs, glutes, and the arms. We won't be quite in sync, but let's have one more on this side. And as always, take a child pose if you need to. So we're working our way to the other side. You're either on all fours or with me in down dog. And let's lift the left leg. And then with slow control, navel to spine, front ribs together, curling and emptying the lungs. So really deepen the breath here and think about nourishing the whole body. Every cell in your body needs oxygen. So think about the air, oxygen pumping around the body. A little bit of heat is fine, but try to have the discipline to stop if there's a little bit too much going on. I think we're all on our last one here. Let's sit back on the heels and circle out the wrists. Well done. Last thing we're going to do on our bellies, prone, locust, just to strengthen or further that work that we were doing for the postural muscles, and then we're on our back, so you're near the end. So if you come down to the floor, hands under the shoulders, or a little bit further apart if that's more comfortable. Release the toes, zip your legs together, squeeze your glutes together so the pubic bone presses into the floor. Forehead to the floor and shoulders down away from the ears. Now, draw your ribs down to your pubic bone up to your ribs, so we have that core engagement. And now we'll lift the upper body off the floor, not very far. We're just strengthening those arm muscles, upper back muscles, and we float down. So we're avoiding any sudden movements. And even if you can't lift your upper body off the floor, the intention of lifting is the important part, and that's what's going to strengthen. So shoulders down away from the ears, pressing into the floor to rise up. We're going to be picky. Let's think about a long line at the back of the neck. So the head is so heavy, it may want to dangle down. See if you can keep the same fleshy peach gap between the chin and the chest as you lift and lower. The usual check-in, a little bit of burning heat sensation is fine in the shoulders, but anything sharp, jagged, anything that's uncomfortable, just take a break. Let's have the last one here. And then roll onto your backs. So we'll start by hooking the knees into the chest, and we're going to come back to an old favourite, the dying bug. So getting the brains working, let's have the arms up to the ceiling, palms are facing each other, shoulders into the floor, chin tucked into the chest, and then take the legs to tabletop. Now, if you've got any lower back issues, keep your knees close in towards your chest. If you've got a little bit more strength going on in the core, you can lengthen your knees away, but we don't want to overarch the lower back, just a neutral spine, space for one finger. So we set up Already in this position, I'm starting to shake a little bit, and that's fine. So we're going to extend the right arm, left leg until we're in that V shape, and then we'll return to the starting point. We're taking it in turns, opposite limbs, extend and return. So you may have been used to, exercise videos pumping back and forth. Here, this is far more difficult. We're trying to maintain the gentle line in the lower spine, that neutral spine position, even as we add this huge amount of weight, destabilizing those core muscles, kick in and hold the spine in place. Breathing, people have different ideas on this. You can breathe in as you extend away, breathe out to have that control to return. But really, as long as you're breathing, I'm quite happy. So the main thing is just finding a breath, so where you're not holding the breath, which sounds obvious, but those, if you're really challenging yourself with the knees far away, it can be tempting to just hold your breath. So let's keep the breath going. I should add, you're not trying to touch the floor overhead or with the foot. We don't need to go that far. We're adding enough weight with these long levers onto the core to get a good bit of strength going. Give me 2 more sets, you're nearly there. If you find you're arching the back, just hug in and reset. Last set. Keep curling that pubic bone up towards the ribs. If I'm the only one shaking, I'll be upset. Hug the knees into the chest. Have a lovely rock on the spine. And let's rock on the spine to come up or roll onto one side. Let's take a cross-legged position. And let's stretch the arms out wide and reach overhead, reaching up to the ceiling. Draw the right arm down, hold the elbow and gently draw back for a tricep stretch. See if you can use your head to further get that lift and stretch in the arm. Breathing deeply. The same arm across the body, hook from underneath and gently pull a little bit out of the socket, yet draw back just to get a bit of space. Where the muscles have been all pumped up, let's just now give them time to lengthen out. Shoulder down away from the ear. You can drop the head to the other side. And then we'll take it across to the left. Breathe in and reach. Left arm down the back, hold the elbow, draw up to deepen the stretch to a point that's just right for you. Then breathe. You can use your fingers to walk a little bit further down the spine, but try and keep the shoulder down away from the ear. The head pressing into the forearm just to add to the stretch. And then the same arm across the body. Hook underneath, gently pull, draw back, and drop the head away. Nice soft jaw. Wiggle the fingers. Last of all, we've just got a little figure 4 stretch for the glutes. So from here, on your backs, with the knees bent, we can place the right foot on the left thigh. And you can either stay here and let the hips sway gently side to side, or you can thread through and add a little bit of a sway here. So because it'll hold tightness to slightly different places, you may need to just play around with where you can hit that sweet spot where you get a nice stretch in the right hip. We deepen this by pushing the knee away, that top knee. A little sway, find some ease into the hips. And then let's take it to the other side. Left knee onto the thigh. A gentle sway here with the option of threading through and drawing the knees towards the chest. So that's threading the hands through around the back of the right. And you can use your elbow to get that further external rotation, opening of the left hip. And gently rocking. If you find that kind of sweet spot where it feels like a nice stretch, just pause there and breathe. Just to round off, we'll take a gentle hamstring stretch. So from a seated position, the legs out in front of you. Let's take a deep breath in, stretching overhead. As you breathe out, flowing forward, as if you're trying to reach something just beyond the toes. Pause and then curling, rounding, rebuilding the spine. Last time, and then we're done. Reaching up to the ceiling, spread the fingers, lengthen, and then fold over the legs. Gentle sway before we rebuild the spine. Roll your shoulders back and down, and I'm hoping you're ready for the rest of your day. Really well done.